if we solve it in this way, would this be something that would be convenient for you to use?
Right.
And we always try to think, coming from a development background, like, would I be okay with it? Like, if the organization that I worked at would have implemented this solution, would I have any objection as a developer in the organization? And we try to make sure that it would be solutions that we would also want to use and that they don't cause any, inconvenience to the developers. That's always something you would want to avoid. And we want to let the developers continue to work fluidly.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Uppost Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Sarona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. We're back to engineering. Meet Ronen Slavin, co-founder and CTO of Cycode. Ronen is the co-founder and CTO of Cycode, a startup that secures software delivery pipelines and provides full visibility into enterprise development infrastructure, a serial entrepreneur and former Unit 8200 officer of the Israel Defense Forces. Prior to Cycode, Ronen co-founded FileLock, which was acquired by Reason Security in 2018, where he led the research in endpoint protection development. Ronen Slavin, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm great, Michael. How are you?
Good. I'm excited that you're great because we're going to have a really fun and energetic 20-minute conversation. What you're working on with Cycode as co-founder and CTO, I think is really important. And it's important not just because you're solving an important pain point, but I think it's an interesting example of how a market is developing, a new profession is developing over a very short period of time. And we're introducing a new complexity of user experience and consumer behavior that with Cycode, you're looking to help fix and help resolve and help development teams become better. Obviously, we know that pretty much every company in the world now is becoming a tech company because software is eating the world. And obviously, if you're helping make software better, then Cycode is destined to eat the world, hopefully. Ronen, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, cool. So I'm Ronen. I'm 33 years old. I live in Tel Aviv. Basically, been fascinated with computers since I was a kid. So actually, I started my first degree during high school, sort of in the Open University. Then when I was 18, I pushed my Army service for a year to finish the degree. I worked in that time. Actually, I got my first job as a developer at a company called Delta. I don't know if you know them. Yeah, so they developed like the radar system for the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
Iron Dome. So it was a really cool job to have at 18. Then after a year, I joined the army. I was drafted to 8200. I did there in total about a little more than 5.5 years. Started as a developer. Then I went to officer course. Came back. Started leading a team, growing it. And also did my master's in computer science during the army at that time. Then after these 5.5 years, I left to travel a little bit, came back and looked for my second job as a civilian. So I started working at NSO Group. It was about 7 years ago or 6 years ago, 7. So mainly doing research there, did it for a year and a half. Then I left and opened my first startup that was called FileLock. The idea was that any device can be hacked, so we wanted to build a solution that can protect data even after a device is hacked. So we ran for about 2 years. After that, we were acquired by a company called Reason. That they developed Windows endpoint protection solution for the consumer market. So I moved there and I worked on the Windows endpoint protection and the research at Reason. And then after about a year and a half also, I left and I opened Cycode. It was about 2 years ago. And I'm still working on it, growing the company. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So software and, tell me a little bit from your perspective, what has been happening? You've been developing for quite some time and coding for quite some time. Yeah. How has this industry evolved over the years to the point where we're at now, where Cycode is relevant?
So there's all kinds of factors that contributed to it. Obviously, the first one you mentioned, it software is eating the world. Like if we look at any company that became huge and any company that is sort of still relevant, they all companies that have very large development organizations. So even if you look at McDonald's and things like that, they also do a lot of development and they invest in it a lot. And this is how they sort of evolve to stay relevant. And that's one contributing factor to why software is eating the world. So that's one thing that happened. And then if you look at the other trends that happen, so there's this DevOps trends or GitOps that sort of change the way that we develop software. So if you look at companies like JFrog, their phrase is make software development liquid.
Yeah.
So it kind of changed like the classic approach where you had like the development environment that was separate, and then like you had a different environment for testing, and you had all these manual transitions between the environments and all these inherent controls because of the processes that were there. That now we don't have them. Like the moment that you do something in the development environment, this whole notion of GitOps kicks in, and it takes what you just merged, builds it, test it, make sure that everything is okay, and deploys it to production. So sort of the barriers that we had between the stations are no longer there. So now, like, first of all, the developers, they have much more power. Like if you are able to merge into, let's say, something that goes to production, so you simply can go through all the processes. So I think these are the main two factors that basically, made the importance of protecting software development environments and software delivery pipelines and made it much more important. And then like we got evidence over the past years with many attacks that targeted these specific scenarios and these specific cases.
So what I'm hearing, and I just want to make sure that I understood this correctly. You're saying there's two contributing trends to the origination of Cycode. One of them is the simple idea that software is eating the world, and we can all agree on that. That not just the new companies are software based, but also the incumbents are now transitioning to technology, and we can see that from big pharma to retail chains all the way to insurance companies, right? And then the second contributing factor that you're mentioning is the fact that software developers are becoming much more autonomous and independent, having the power to deploy code themselves to production, especially as we're transitioning from monolith to microservices. And so software developers, there's not as many checks and balances, if you will, along the supply chain from the IDE all the way to the production, correct?
Yeah, and obviously there's lots of benefits to it. I mean, if you need to fix a bug in production, you can do it in a matter of seconds, and you don't need to wait for a very tiring process. But on the other hand, like we need to make sure that we give them enough protection and enough tools to be able to protect themselves and not to expose like the product or the code or whatever.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, tell me, you're understanding this, and you're sitting, with Leo and with the team, and you're figuring out, okay, what in the world how are we gonna solve this? Is the product, do you all agree on what you need to be doing, or is there, a discussion or ideation around this?
So we started with, sort of brainstorming, getting a lot of ideas on if we want to solve, there's lots of issues with securing like software development and the related systems. And obviously there's lots of solutions and lots of directions that you can take. So we start with brainstorming ideas, but then the immediate thing we do after that is we start talking to relevant clients, people that work in security teams in organizations that have software development processes, and we ask them, like, is this a concern for you? Is this a pain point? If we solve it in this way, would this be something that would be convenient for you to use?
Right.
And we always try to think, coming from a development background, like, would I be okay with it? Like, if the organization that I worked at would have implemented this solution, would I have any objection as a developer in the organization, and we try to make sure that it would be solutions that we would also want to use and that they don't cause any, inconvenience to the developers. That's always something you would want to avoid, and we want to let the developers continue to work fluidly without interrupting them.
By the way, how, I know that I'm jumping around a little bit, but if we're looking now at the world of product-led growth and, you're building a tool for developers by developers, what are some of the checks and balances that you have for yourself as, CTO, but a leader in this organization to make sure that developers do like the product that you're building, that it's not something that, they're resisting to as it enters organizations?
So obviously, as a startup, these are things that we mature at. So first of all, the main approach that we took is that we don't want to teach developers to use a new product. We want to integrate with the tools that they already use. And really, if you look at the platform that's already out there, if you look at GitHub, for example, right? They already have a mechanism that you can comment and you can interact, and there is emojis, I don't know, whatever, things like that in GitHub.
So I use it all the time. The emojis changed the whole experience, I have to say.
To me, it's GIFs. I'm waiting for GIFs to get to GitHub. So we look at it and we say, okay, let's try to use these existing capabilities and work with them instead of creating a product that now the developers need to learn and then I need to log into and visit every once in a while. So really collaborate with them. And obviously, it also ties back to what I mentioned earlier, that we simply ask them. We talk to the security teams. We ask them to work with the developers. I think it's also one of the trends that we see. For example, if you look at KubeCon, which was last month, so there was a lot of security in it in the conferences. That sort of the origin of it is more DevOps or more development, and it's becoming clear that security is not something that you can isolate from the developers. It's something that's becoming a part of development itself, and it's something that we all are understanding right now, and we see the products responding accordingly.
Going back to the idea of developers having to take more ownership of their security. As you're building Cycode, you're watching the organization grow from pretty much few people to now you mentioned 50 people, more than half of them as engineers. You as the technology leader, how have you evolved, do you think, since the inception of Cycode up until now?
So to me, I think first of all, it's hiring very strong people. Obviously it's I'm not objective, but hiring top talent and having smart people surround you and in the company. We're very open at Cycode. We always wanna hear everyone's opinion. I mean, eventually we develop a product for developers, and we have developers in the organization, so they have a lot of obviously they can contribute a lot to the product. It's not something that is foreign to them. It's something that they live daily, and they all have really good ideas, and probably there will be the best people to listen to when we build this product. So we try to lean on that as much as we can, and obviously trying to keep this open mentality and just sharing whatever we can, even connecting them with clients whenever possible, and really closing this feedback quick.
And if you're looking internally with you and the engineers that you hire and that you manage, how do you see yourself as a tech leader? What are some of the guiding, the North Star for you as in your communication and your decision making?
So there's all kinds of aspects related to building the product. So again, it's a different discussion of the responsibilities of the CTO versus the VP R&D, and how do you divide these responsibilities. We have a very strong VP R&D here that he leads the R&D group, and obviously we started with some initial architecture, but he's leading that since then. And my part is more to sort of follow the trends in the market. A lot of the a lot of the activity that happened over the past year. If we look at 2021, so there were really critical incidents that involved the software supply chain. So SolarWinds is the first one, as you know, this is how the year started. Then you had CodeCov, you had an injection attack to PHP. There's all kinds of really devastating attacks that happened through the software supply chain, and the entire industry is now talking about what would be a possible solution. There's a framework that Google is starting to develop right now that is called Salsa, that is more like guidelines and things like that on what you should do and how you should build the provenance. But I try to follow like the trends on that, understand where the market is going, where the industry is going, and then how we can incorporate it into the product. So that's sort of how we divide it.
Well, then take me back before the Open University, before you become an engineer, middle school, elementary school, 10 years old. Where's your mind at? What makes you curious? What fascinates you as a kid?
So I like to learn new stuff. And I'm originally from Ashdod, if you know probably you know. So obviously there were all kinds of programs, for children. So I think it was a major contributor. Like you go every Friday, and we had some robotics, we had some even Japanese, I don't know, things like that. But eventually the technical aspect is what I got sucked into the most. And obviously, I think, as a kid, you don't make your decisions on your own. Obviously, my parents, they were a major contributor, and probably, one of the main reasons that I did it. And I have to thank them for that. It saves me a lot of time in the future.
And if you look today at where you draw your inspiration from, you wake up every day and you go to lead Cycode, where do you derive your inspiration?
So first of all, I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with the people in Cycode. I enjoy working on the product. It's super interesting to me. So to me, like the inspiration come with like from working with awesome people. Just really enjoying coming to work every day and believing that the problem that we're trying to solve is critical. To us, we got approved this year. We opened Cycode about more than a year before SolarWinds and before CodeCov, and a lot of the discussion that we see right now are things that we were, talking about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and it's a really great validation for us to see it coming from, well-known organizations like Gartner and Google and I don't know, NIST and things like that. So to me, this combo of having awesome people with you and really believing that you're solving an important issue is what drives me.
I love it. And 3 words you would use to describe yourself, or 2 or 4?
Or 2, 3, or 4. So I'm a technology junkie.
Yeah.
So that's 2 words. But also I love to enjoy and have fun. This will be the 2.
Ronen, toda rabba. Best of luck with Cycode. I think it's, an amazing timing. It's a real pain point that, it's literally, I think just the concept of understanding how software is eating the world and the ripple effect that is going to have on our methodologies and the way that we work. Just like, I'm looking back at the Industrial Revolution and how people all of a sudden were replaced by machines, and the way that now you develop machines is changing, and how you have these inflection points where checks and balances have to be mitigated, and you have that distance between optimization for speed and efficiency, but also the ability to make sure that you're doing everything properly. And I think it's just an exciting time to be an engineer, an exciting time to lead a company like Cycode. So best of luck, and I can't wait to follow the journey, and thank you for the time.
Yeah, I agree completely, and thank you for having me. I really enjoyed. Have a great day as well.
Thank you very much.